Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. Man, I'm tired, guys. I'm sorry. I can't even get out the intro today. With me this week is Shane Hubenig of Hubenig Holdings in British Columbia. He's actually on Salt Springs Island. You can go look it up. It's like this little itty bitty place. It's probably really beautiful though, and it's just out there, just north of Washington for us Americans, and probably a really great place. And so we are here to talk about why you need an FU bank account. And if you don't know what an FU bank account is, this is going to change your business. Everybody needs an FU bank account. And essentially, it's just you need retained capital earnings and a savings account on a personal level so that you're not stressed out. Because a lot of us live paycheck to paycheck, project to project, and there's nothing being kept back. There's nothing to allow you to just sit there, take it easy a little bit. Maybe you can, afford that family vacation more easily, or you have money to start making investments. And so I want to point out that Shane's company name is Hubenig Holdings. And it's just, a generic title for the fact that there's a few things within that company that are being held to be profitable for him. And so I want to have this discussion with him, find out how he got there, why he got there, and help you be able to also get there. Anyone that ever tells me this isn't a lucrative trade, I call bullshit. Just straight up. If you're not making money in this trade, it's because you're doing it wrong. There is tons of money to be made when you learn how to have some basic sales skills. You learn how to have just a little bit of money management, and you learn how to deliver on the promises you make to clients. And so there's no reason that you shouldn't be making money and advancing yourself. And even if you have absolutely nothing, Illustrious Hardwoods was started out of a two-door coupe Chevy Cavalier. My shop vac had to ride shotgun with me, and the saws went in the back seat. The compressor was in the trunk. I didn't have anywhere to dispose of stuff. Like the first few projects that I was doing, they were like, we'll dispose of the materials ourselves that you rip out. And I was just installing some flooring, and I didn't even have all the stuff I needed, but it got it done. There was a Harbor Freight nail gun and compressor. What did that cost me 8 years ago? Like $80. It was probably like $50 or $60 for the compressor and $20 for the nail gun. And yet it allowed me to go and make a little bit of money. And then I was able to buy the $120 nail gun and the $100 compressor. And you got to peck away at it. And so part of that was having an FU bank account, slowly but surely. So we're going to dig into that. We'll have Shane introduce himself in just a minute. Why is Floor Academy here? We're here because every week we are diving into the business side of contracting so that you can learn about what to focus on when you're sitting at the desk or you're not actively in the field, so you can run a more successful, more profitable business that frees up more of your time so you can do the things you actually want to do. I want to give you a lifestyle lift. And I know that all of us went into business for ourselves saying, I'm going to make more money, I'm going to have more free time. And then it ends up being the complete opposite of that. And it doesn't have to be that way. So slowly but surely, you listen to an episode, you get a nugget of wisdom or two, maybe 5. You start applying them, work on your business 15 minutes a day at a minimum. Find 15 minutes to sit there and actually focus on the back end, apply the things you're learning from the show. And I guarantee you in a year, you will have a completely different business. Things that need to happen: subscribe to the show on the podcast that you're listening to right now, or on YouTube, or wherever you are. Click that subscribe button. If you really enjoy it, leave a review. 5-star reviews help me rank way higher in the search engine and whatnot. Gets it out to more people, so more people can continue to elevate our industry from where it is. You can go to flooracademypod.com. We've got all kinds of great files over there to help you figure out what your day rate is, what employee labor burden is running you, if you want it to keep track of your tools or do some job costing. We've got spreadsheets on that. There's also the shop, so you can pick up a shirt or a hoodie. It's cold right now. I would get the hoodie. It says profit is not a dirty word. There's regular hoodies too, but the profit is not a dirty word hoodie. That's what we're talking about, because it's not, and you're allowed to make it. And if the show's super duper helping you out, you can go to patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping the show to continue to happen. We got a quick word from Chronosoft, and then we will dive into this with Shane. Are you looking for an easy and affordable way to manage your flooring business? Cronus Flooring Software is your solution. Streamline your workflow for managing leads, inventory, and scheduling installations. It includes every feature needed to support your business at a very affordable price. It's extremely user-friendly and easy to navigate. Full integration with QuickBooks makes tracking your profitability as easy as clicking a button. Visit chronosoft.com today to schedule a demo. That's KRONUSSOFT.com, or you can click the link in the show notes. Let them know that Floor Academy sent you over. And why do you need a CRM, right? This is going to go hand in hand with your FU bank account. If you're using the CRM and you got it linked to your QuickBooks, you're going to be able to figure out your profitability much quicker. And then you're going to be able to say, hey, I can start sticking 10% of everything I'm making off into that bank account. And you're going to be able to communicate with clients more easily, and you're going to follow up with all of those dead leads. What's up, Anthony? How you doing, buddy? Nice to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Shane, that's enough out of me. Nobody wants to hear me. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Okay. My name is I'm Shane Hubenig, and I mostly call and brand myself an independent floor installer. That's what I do because I'm not working much for shops. I'm mostly sourcing my work through word of mouth and referrals from my paint stores and things that come up. I don't really have a store per se, so that's where I'm coming from. I also own a chain of 9 paint stores. I have a pre-coating mill, and I own or part own 5 rental properties, and my personal home in that. So that's where I'm at, the nuts and bolts of it. It's Most of the money generated in my company is really the paint side of the operation, my paint stores. But I still earn my personal living, and most of the money and pretty much all the money I bring into my family is from my work as a floor covering installer. I'm right into 30 years of floor installing, so I turn 50 next year, and I've been installing since really I got out of high school, even before getting out of high school. So I don't really count my teenage years. I'm not one of those guys that says, "Oh, I've been installing since I've been 14." It's like, yeah, I was with my dad working since then through the summers, but I really count my time in the trade from the time I graduated and was at it full time, right?
Okay.
So 30 years. Yeah.
And some of that is union uh
Um,
union training and with the union for a few years before
yes,
you went
that's
out on
right.
your own.
Yeah, that's right. I left the small town I grew up in and went to the big city, and joined the union. And so I was 10 years a union floor installer, which was mostly commercial. But one of the shops I worked for had 2 divisions. They had a commercial division that was very large. When in their busy periods, they had 100 installers a day going out the door. So they were a busy shop, possibly the biggest in Western Canada at the time. But they also had a high-end residential division, which was kind of nice. So I got a taste of wool carpet, occasionally woven goods, and I was doing a lot of cork floors as well. So I got to dabble my feet in some pretty high-end stuff while being in the union environment, while still
Mhm.
cutting my teeth mainly commercial. It was a neat environment. A lot of guys in that world typecasted themselves, and that's not a bad thing. Like, became very efficient. A lot of guys really define themselves. Oh, I work for the residential division, or I work for the commercial division. I'm a hard
Mhm.
surface guy. I'm a carpet tile guy. I always kind of enjoyed having a variety and doing a different stuff. My dad was a small town store, so most installers did everything. They put vinyl down on a vinyl day. They put carpet down on a carpet day. So
Okay.
I came from that variety, and I kind of maintained it when I was in the union. I was always on jobs where I was multidisciplined. I could do different things. So Um,
Well, and
Initially, like, mhm,
we left out the wife and three kids. What
yeah.
you got?
Oh yeah.
Shane's explained that he has a lot of stuff, right? Like there's rental properties and there's 9 paint stores and a pre-coating company at this point that was acquired like I don't know, like a year ago, year and a half ago,
Yeah, a
something
year
like that.
ago. Yeah.
But you got, a lot of people would be like, well, okay, he's by himself. No, man, he's got a wife, he's got three kids, and they're what, like
Yeah.
12, and then the twins are 9.
Yeah, I've been married 16 years, and the my oldest boy is 14, and the twins are 9. Yeah, so
Okay.
three kids and a dog and
So
a
yeah, I
wife.
mean, you're busting your butt
I'm
to make
busy.
it all happen. There's
Yeah.
definitely a good amount of expenses that exist in order to maintain a lifestyle for that family as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of dig into this, right? So where do we even start? Like for you, when you and I started having this discussion, right? You really resonated with it, and I knew you kind of had all this stuff, and you'd worked hard to really save and penny pinch and make all of this happen. But when I say you need an FU bank account, like what does that mean to you?
Well, I never used that terminology, but I really liked it when I first heard it. It's is if you're not cash flush, if you are looking at a job, whether it's standing in front of a customer making a bid or bidding on a project or walking into a shop and looking to work for them, is if your hat is in your hand and you need money at the end of that week, your mindset is completely different
Mm-hmm.
than if you're like, I'm here, this is what I offer, this is what I expect. Are you offering that in return? Are you able to, is this a reciprocal relationship? Are you providing what I want as much as I'm providing what you want? Like that's the mindset you can enter into things when you're not broke. And having said that, I don't want to talk too much like someone that's got it all figured out. I just bought a new house; it's very nice, and the expenses of closing costs and lawyer stuff and insurance of my old properties and every like it seems when you go and buy a house and transfer a property, there's always someone more with their hand out, and each hand needs several $1,000s. So I'm feeling kind of broke these days. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
not shy to admit that.
We're gonna dig into that. But
Sure.
I
Yeah.
want to start with you're bringing up this great point. I think no matter where you start, a lot of us start because we get frustrated with whoever we're working for, the guy, the gal we're working for. We don't feel we're being paid enough. We think we can make more on our own, whatever it is. We buy some tools, we go out on our own, and you don't have anything, right? You just need a job. And so you go and you try and make some money, and then hopefully you learn that you can sell it a little bit more the next time and a little bit more the next time. But I know what really made a difference for me was that I just slowly started. I was like, I wonder if I can get, like I was the dollar a square foot guy. I was the hack out there for $1 square foot. I was like, I wonder if I can get $1.10. I wonder if I can get $1.25. $1.50, right? I kept increasing my skills, how fast I could do things, and I kept trying to charge more. But with that, I was trying to set money aside. And it got to the point where the big realization for me was that one, there was enough money in the account that didn't belong to anybody. It wasn't a deposit. It wasn't that it was going to go out and pay gas or credit card bills or anything. There was just an extra 20 grand is what it got up to. And I was like, oh my God, I can afford flooring from myself. Like I can buy a floor for me. I have the money. And that was a really big realization that one, I could afford my work because previously I couldn't. And so stop bidding things as if it's your wallet that needs to buy it. Don't do that. And two, I realized I had 20 grand and that I could live off of like 3 or 4 grand a month at the time. And so I had 5 or 6 months of savings. And then I was able to go into bids and want like instead of needing to do that project, I was looking at it like, would I enjoy this? And is
Yeah.
it something I want to do? And then that changed my mentality. And there's an arrogance that can come over you, I think, and not in a bad way. I think clients actually like it because they can smell desperation on you, and then they're going to use that to
Yes.
their advantage. They'll bid you down. And when you go in and you start acting aloof and like you kind of don't care if you get their project or not, I think it makes them more intrigued personally. And so being able to build up that comfort, that's why I call it a fuck you bank account, is because it's fuck you, I don't need this. Like I would like to do this. I would enjoy doing this, but I don't need to do this. I can go bid the next one and maybe that person's more interesting and will give me less crap about my pricing or my pitch or whatever it is. And they're just going to be like, oh my God, I love everything you say. Like, where do I sign on the dotted line? And can I just hand you gold bars?
Mm.
And so how, from going from working for shops and working in the union and stuff, I know the union paid you well, but when you went out on your own, did you come to those same realizations slowly but surely?
Um, I I don't think leaving the union was had any relationship to it. I think I intrinsically had certain concepts I kind of worked for in my career. Can I tell you a short story that I think is relevant?
Yeah.
Is okay because I think it was the most instrumental in the way I think and the way I look at things. Is my dad had a work partner he worked with for years. They worked side by side. They roughly made about the same amount of money. My dad always hustled a little more, always worked a little more, worked a little weekends, worked a little faster. I know through his career, my dad made more money than his work partner. My dad was injured at the time in my life where I was starting entering the trade, and I was working for who was his partner.
Mm-hmm.
And his partner had so much more going for him financially. Now, this is no diss on my dad. My dad and I have a great relationship. The things we do together, it really always has been good. So this is not a diss by any means, but my dad was always needing the next paycheck, always needing the next buck. This guy who he's partnered with, who I knew made less money than him through his whole career, had a waterfront property that was beautiful. He had a rental property in a nearby city. He had a chunk of land he was sitting on, and he had savings and retirement savings. And I'm just like, these two guys made the same amount of money their whole career. In fact, my dad made more. Why does this guy have so much and
Mm-hmm.
my dad has so little? And so I'd always ask him questions about how he handled his finances and what he did, and a lot of the tips I picked up and a lot of the habits I have in my thinking, I actually credit to him. I
Okay.
credit my character to my dad. I credit my work ethic to my dad. I credit my financial management skills to the fellow I learned the trade from. That He was an older Dutch installer, actually, and so maybe he brought some European viewing of things,
Mm-hmm.
conservative European values. I don't know, but that was that was kind of the thing. And so I always, for a long time, I had a belief in not, keeping your expenses low. I like nice things,
Mm-hmm.
but I prefer to splurge. I do prefer to save up and splurge versus buy something on a payment plan.
Yeah.
And so that was and so a lot of these things kind of mesh together. It's hard to pick one thing, and that's why I save money and get ahead, so to speak, right? Or is it
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I know guys around me when I was in the union, and then and in my peer group of friends and all that, people always said, "Oh, Shane's good with money. Shane's good with money. Shane knows how to handle money." It's like I actually don't think I handle money particularly well. I don't think I'm great. I think I'm good at having the discipline and systems in place that prevent myself from doing the wrong thing. Not
Mm-hmm.
so much that I'm brilliant at doing the right thing.
I think that's the key, right? Is it's patience, delayed
Yeah.
gratitude. There's
Yes.
a rule of
Delayed
thumb.
gratification. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I meant. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a rule of thumb of if you can't afford 10 of them, you can't afford one.
Mm.
And so, you want that new iPhone. Well, it's $1,000. So do you have $10,000 in your bank account so that you can go afford the iPhone? And I get, okay, we can talk about, okay, the house. And look, if you want to go get in a mortgage and pay that, like, that's cool. But you want a Lamborghini? Can you afford 10 of them? Because if you only have enough money for one, you can't really afford it because you're going to have no money left after you buy one.
Mm.
And I think the basic financial understanding and awareness is something that's severely lacking. Our schools don't really teach it anymore. And a lot of parents, like, money's hush hush. in a lot of families. It's not something that's discussed at
Yes.
the dinner table. And I know, at least in my house, and I would assume in yours, is that it probably comes up a lot more because we're business owners. And so there was actually a time my son wanted to take a plane ride that it's like $300. It's in some World War II plane and it's like a 20-minute flight. And I was like, no, dude, that like I'm not spending $300 on this 20-minute plane ride. And he starts going into it. Well, Dad, they got to pay for the fuel, and it's an old plane, so it needs lots of maintenance. And then they got the hangar costs, and like he just starts breaking down all their overhead costs and stuff. And I was like, and you act like you don't pay attention when I'm speaking. Ha.
Right.
Yeah. Guess what? The answer's
Good.
still no, but I'm very impressed you were able to give me that pitch. So,
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I think makes a difference. So what are some of the tips you picked up from this guy along the way that you think really stood out to you and helped you have the patience to save and delay gratification and just, you say you don't handle it well, but you're handling it well enough that you've been able to build assets that help pay the way for you as opposed to only having a paycheck that pays the way.
I think the biggest, the funny thing is we're just talking about a real life experience of doing the basics that every financial management or self-help financial book tells you. And I haven't actively pay myself first. I wouldn't say I've got that as my practice, but I guess I do. Okay, well, one of them, and this did come from my mentor, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
is that he ran as a sole proprietorship, I believe, but I set up almost immediately as a corporation when I left the union. And a big one of it is pay yourself a salary.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a business account, pay yourself a salary out of it. Don't take the check, put it in your bank account, and that becomes your money to spend. If you figure out how much you need to live and you allocate that much to yourself as if you're an employee of your own company, of yourself. You do that right from the beginning. Even if I was a sole proprietor, I would operate that way. Here's my business account. There's where all the business money goes. The money's expenses is when it's time to, oh, look, it's the second Friday of the month. I need to pay myself. I've got my mortgage to pay. I got my
Mm-hmm.
vehicle payments, whatnot. You pay yourself what you need. You set it amount and you pay yourself that much steady and you leave the balance in the company. You let that build up. And
Definitely.
yeah, and then it's just like typically if I need a tool or a piece of equipment, and I've always been that way. Like I've worked alongside guys that'll spend months and sometimes years about talking about a piece of equipment. Oh, I should really own this type of grinder. I should really own this. I should really own that. I have to honestly say I'm not in that state. And sometimes I got employees and people around me that almost make funny of me, that kind of thing. If there's a $3,000 machine that'll make my job better, I go and buy that machine.
Yeah.
I don't even blink, honestly. I don't. I don't buy foolishly. I don't buy things I'm hardly ever going to use. But if I say, hey, that's going to make my job a little easier consistently over time, nothing. How much will I spend? I don't know. If I have to spend more than 5,000 on a piece of equipment, I'll think about it twice. I'll look over its return and all that. But anything less than 5 grand, just buy it. Buy it.
Well,
And
I agree. Buy it, but it's because you were saving and the money was there and it didn't belong to anybody. It wasn't a paycheck to
right.
paycheck, and that's
Yes.
the key.
Yeah.
And I was in the same boat as I always was trying to, I was trying to bid stuff high enough that I was actually profitable and there was extra money left, and then it all sat there. And so yeah, when there was a $300 tool, $500 tool, $2,400 vacuum, it was like,
Yep.
oh, that's going to make me more money. Well, let's go buy it. Like, I don't even have to think about it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
go get it. And oh, look at that. And two projects, the money's back in the bank account because it made it easier. It wasn't like, oh man, how am I going to do this? I got to finance it now. And then I got to come up with pull the trigger. When you handle the money responsibly, and go pick up, I don't care who you pick up a book from. Go read The Richest Man in Babylon. I highly recommend. Super great book that's timeless. Go pick up Sue Zorman. Go pick up Robert Kiyosaki. Pick up Dave Ramsey. Pick up all of them and compare them, because I don't think that any of them are 100% correct. I think you
Yeah.
need to find a system that works for you. But go learn some amount of financial literacy so you understand what's happening. If you don't understand how a dollar works and how it's created and why inflation is bad, like you have to have a basic understanding of the economy because you're participating in it
Yeah.
as a business owner. You
Maybe
can't just
maybe it
willy-nilly
speaks.
it.
Maybe it speaks to something that I've read every book you've mentioned, and maybe that's one of the traits too. It's like you like to read on things that It's yeah, it's like if your entertainment is self-improvement, then you find yourself in those things. And each one of them usually has an aspect of their what they teach that I kind of disagree with.
Hmm.
I found almost all those people you mentioned have some aspect of their advice I actually don't believe and say, hey, that's really only specific for certain people, or I don't agree that that's as universal as it should be. But I don't think any of them steer you wrong either. If you pick up any one of those books and start putting into practice their basics, you're not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to waste your money. You're not going to be in bad
Hmm.
shape. But like you say, I kind of have taken and picked away a difference of them, align them with my own beliefs and what I think I can do and what's achievable, and kind of make it all fit. But yeah, those are all good examples of good books. I do feel I don't know if it's just our trade or if it's tradesmen in general, but I do feel there is a really high level of financial illiteracy among us collectively as a group. I remember when I was in the union, I'm smart enough to be careful about this, to say, hey, I'm not giving you tax advice. I'm not giving you financial advice, right? Because I did have a reputation for a guy that knew how things worked and that. And so I'd have guys asking me about their taxes, about
Hmm.
how this worked and that worked. And I'd tell them what I knew while always saying it's just like, hey, I can't analyze your situation. And this is my understanding. And I'm still a tradesman with tools in my hands. This is not
Hmm.
something I know, but this is how I think it works. But even the tax stratification, like for union guys who have tax deductions, even the way tax deductions work, I'd hear guys say ridiculous things like, oh, I don't want to work too much overtime because I go into a higher tax bracket and it costs me more. It's like
Yeah.
you clearly don't understand how the tax system works. No, it is never bad to earn more money. It is never
Correct.
bad to work overtime. It's like, yes, a higher portion, you get hit with taxes differently. And the way the pay stubs are structured, sometimes it looks bad. But no, there's no bad. It's never bad to say yes to overtime. and
Yes, I agree.
but what's amazing to me is the number of people that I've had that discussion with. The number of people that own property and don't understand how the tax structure works there is astounds me as well. But yeah, the education isn't there. If you want to understand money or know anything about it, you got to educate yourself, or have good mentors, have you know hang out and buddy with people who you think have got things figured out,
Well,
preferably in your own industry, and
yes.
pick up things here and there.
You
Um,
gotta surround yourself with the professionals that understand it, and it might cost you some money, but that money should save you tons of money. And well, how do you find the right professional? Well, you got to educate yourself enough to be able to go
right?
hold someone accountable, and
Yeah.
that's what really matters. Is I think so. It's richest man in Babylon. The quote is something like, you wouldn't hire the brick maker to go like buy you jewels. But
Hmm.
it's because what the hell, the brick maker knows about making bricks. He doesn't know anything about diamonds and gems and jewels. So how is he going to go and do that? Like if you want to buy jewels, go to the jeweler. They know jewels. If you want bricks, go to get the brick guy. If you want bread, go to the bread guy. Right. And I think that's what's funny, especially with this landscape that we have now in the online groups. Guys come on and they're like, oh, what do you think about this situation? You were asking a bunch of uneducated tradespeople what you should do with your business. Go ask your, like, especially with taxes, like go talk to a tax professional, like hire a CPA, hire someone that files taxes. Go have, you can probably get a free consultation, but half these guys and gals don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I will gladly admit that I have some answers, and it's always followed up by, this is how it was explained to me, but I would go get a professional.
Yeah.
Because I can easily mess something up, misquote it, get it wrong. That's not my area.
Different
Now, you want me to go
different
put some,
jurisdictions are different.
correct. You
Like
want
I'm
me,
in Canada, and the way some things are viewed, and sometimes the laws are different. So there's that. That being said, even when you are looking for professional advice, and when it comes to finances, financial, I definitely agree with that. I do believe it's smart to have a just a little bit of cynicism in you too, and not like go into the first one you find in the phone book or pops up on your internet feed, right? I always ask myself, if I'm looking for financial advice, if I'm looking for investment advice, how does this person get compensated? That doesn't mean I'm going to discount them or dismiss them,
mm-hmm,
but I want to know how they make their money so I understand where they're coming from and I can see where their biases are. Because if you go into some places, someone's going to start trying to sell you a bunch of mutual funds. Well, they make money selling you mutual funds. Maybe your best financial position is owning your own home first at a good interest rate. That might be smarter than investing than buying. But
Hmm.
you go into an investment advisor, they will say, "Oh, the best thing you can do is buy these stocks or sorry, buy these mutual funds."
Yeah.
And I like if I'm dealing with financial professionals particularly, I want to find out through discreet and respectful questions, how are they compensated? I've asked that of my mortgage broker. It's like, okay, how do you make money in this deal? How do you make money? Oh, this is how it works. Okay, I get that. I
Yeah.
can work with that. I understand it.
It's
Yeah.
fun. The best question I've ever heard to ask a financial advisor, and I've never heard of one taking anybody up on it, is let me see your portfolio. Because let me see yours. Like, what do you have to hide? If you're so good and you're so knowledgeable, let me see yours. And I have a guy, and I haven't seen his portfolio, but I also don't really use him to like manage anything, and he's not constantly giving me advice. It was just I needed to set up
Right.
this thing or that thing, and
Mhm.
he makes a very very small commission rate off of it. But I'm not.
Mhm.
I would never call him and be like, oh, what about this light? Like he's just not set up for that stuff. So, um, but yeah, I think it's super important to be able to get enough information to go and be able to ask the questions to hold someone accountable. And all of this, it goes hand in hand. Like you have to start somewhere saving some money. And I want to start digging into that a little bit about how you got the first, your first
Sure.
place. And then that turned into a rental, but I'm going to interrupt this real quick. And we've got a quick word from Johns Manville. Compatible with all GoBoard products is the new GoBoard membrane. If you're asking why a membrane when GoBoard itself is waterproof through and through, the answer is simple. A membrane extends your GoBoard installation for mud pans, steam rooms, and sheared walls requiring a fire-rated board under the waterproofing. Now, who's going to be the most badass GoBoard installer out there? You are. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for all the product details or click on the link in the show notes. Okay, Shane, we are back. I want to know how'd you get your first place in Vancouver, right?
Okay.
Like
Sure. That's fair.
what were the steps to like even for you to be able to get that place and then that eventually turned into your first rental property and that happened
Sure.
before the paint company, right? But
Correct.
there had to be steps in order to save up a down payment, get somebody to say your pay stubs look good enough for a paycheck, right? So where did this
Sure.
ball start rolling to even get a down payment, save up, and know
Yeah,
you can pull the
I
trigger?
can go there. I would say in it was around it was right hovering around the room 2000 the year 2000 actually, right around 2000 where found myself in a recent breakup and just moved to the city and I was completely broke. I was driving a work van I paid $800 for that. It was literally laughed at by my fellow workers in the union. I was made fun of.
You were
I kept
that
that
guy.
van for 10 years. I kept that van 10 years and guys made fun of it the whole time,
And now I know
all
why
the
you have
time.
money.
Yes, yes, I've actually got a story related to that, even they'll interweave into this, right? But that's all I had. I was trying to rent an apartment, and things have definitely gotten worse. Pay ratios to the cost of rental is worse than it's ever been now.
Hmm.
But it's not like it was easy then either. Like if you were renting a place on yourself, by yourself, you had no roommate, no partner earning money. Um, and you had vehicle payments, you're going to have trouble to save up. I just said to my first rental was in the outskirts of the city where it was cheaper. Like so, I had the same nightmarish commute in Vancouver everyone had, like 45 minutes on the road on a good day each way to get to my job sites.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to work in the valley. I liked Vancouver proper work. I liked Vancouver. I liked the North Shore. It was nice jobs, nice materials. So I said, if this is the city I want to work in, uh, is this is the city I want to live in. And already prices looked out of reach. Like the city looked unaffordable for a working class guy. But I was like, no, I'm not going to continue in this life and this lifestyle unless I can live in the city I'm working in.
Hmm.
And so I ended up renting a room in a boarding house, like for $400 a month. I basically dropped my expenses down to nothing. I just had a work van I paid for cash, and And honestly, and I was union then, so I was working by the hour, not sub trade. I knew I could make more money as a sub, but I felt the union gave me a financial stability in a way. Not because they guaranteed work or anything, because they don't. But this brings up a part I didn't mention. I, like a lot of sub trades, I was actually in tax problems, like with the
Okay.
government.
Yeah.
I owed
Yeah.
because I was a sub before, and it wasn't a lot. Like I owed the government like 6 grand, but it felt like a lot. It felt insurmountable when Revenue Canada phoned me up saying, "Hey, we're going to garnish your paychecks and do this and that
Yeah.
and all that." So I owed money to the government. I wasn't in a positive situation. So, but by joining the union, I had regular payroll deductions, right? So Revenue Canada stopped bugging me. I don't know if it works the same in the States, but if you're getting payroll deductions as an employee and they're going to the government, they kind of stop harassing you. They're like, yeah, we owe them a tax return. We just won't give it to them. And
Yeah.
eventually
Well,
it'll get paid up.
that is why
So,
1099 is so prevalent over here, is because a lot of people end up with problems, or they don't want to be paying child support or whatever, and so it's
right.
you can skirt around all of that by just getting paid cash, and then, oh, I just didn't file my taxes again. But anyways, well,
Oh, you can in Canada too. It
mhm.
works the same way in
Yeah.
Canada and eventually catches up to you, you know. So taking on the union job, uh, was part of an attempt to stabilize my finances,
Okay.
and it did that. And I still credit that because even though I believe, like, I think I was fast enough and I had my shit together enough, I would have made more money as a sub trade. Is that union pay stub, I believe, was instrumental in a bank accepting me and me getting a mortgage,
Hmm.
especially in those first few years. So yeah, so I took a room in a boarding house. So I was paying like $350 a month a room, maybe 400 with utilities, and I said yes to every overtime shift. I had a reputation for it. At one point, the union office was telling me, "Shane, you're working too much. Like, there's guys that are sitting at home when you're working. Like, come on, we can't have this. Like, slow down a bit." But I just never said no. Weekend work,
Hmm.
finish a day work, and then move on to the night job. So, and I still feel I physically pay the price for those times a little bit. Like, I believe I overworked myself in those days, and it took me about 3 years.
Okay.
But and I kept my life simple. I didn't go to sporting events. I didn't go to concerts. I wasn't like living like a miser. It's like I found things to enjoy that didn't cost a lot of money. I enjoyed, like, Vancouver's beautiful. I enjoyed cruising around the. This was the tail end of the '90s, but I did enjoy like cruising around the city on my rollerblades.
Okay.
You know, I had friends I did things with, so I found a lifestyle I enjoyed that wasn't expensive. I love motorcycles. I love scuba diving. I At one time I loved horses. Like, I love hunting. Like, I have a lot of hobbies that are very expensive, and I kind of put them all aside and said, no,
Hmm.
I can't afford hunting trips. No, I can't afford this. And but I wasn't unhappy in that time period.
Well, so
You know,
I think the key takeaway is that you can't have your cake and eat it too. You
that's the
have to
state I
give,
was. Yeah,
you got to give something up. You have to make the sacrifice to get ahead. And I don't
yeah.
know that a lot of us are willing to do that most of the time. It's like, I want to be able to have everything and this. Well, you're going to kill yourself. So if you can give it up for a little bit, you can 10x it
Uh,
on the back end.
yeah, yeah. I want to. Yeah, and in this, I don't know if I mentioned or if it was mentioned, but um, is yeah, my net worth is a lot today. I am worth a lot, and along the way, there's been, like, I've got no inheritances. There's been no windfalls, no unexpected
Hmm.
flashes of cash to give me boosts. It was really my entire business retail empire has been built by sweat equity, and one thing moving on to the other, moving to another to get here. And I still think my path's not complete, and I'm not 100% where I want to be, but that's it. So, but getting back to that, it's like, yeah, I kept my expenses low, worked tons of overtime, just banking it, not really paying attention, and then eventually I had enough money for a down payment on a place,
Hmm.
minimal down payment, but down payment for
Yep.
a very nice apartment in the city of Vancouver, a very desirable place to live. I will include in this, if I was to give some advice to someone, if you don't own a place, if you're not on that path yet, talk to a mortgage broker sooner rather than later. I think I held off longer than I needed to. because a mortgage broker will give you the roadmap to where you need to be
Hmm.
in order to get what you need. Because I've seen people trying to pay down debt, working hard to pay down debt, only to find out after from the mortgage broker, well, no, you're actually better off saving a down payment and having that available and doing that right. Like every
Hmm.
situation is different, but the
Yeah.
mortgage broker can give you the thing. Because when I did finally go to a mortgage broker, I said, I think I have enough to go to a mortgage broker. Mortgage broker said, "Hey, this is no problem. You've got plenty."
Well,
And
yeah, it comes back to talking with the professional, right? Like they know what you need to
right,
do. If you have
yeah,
debt, go talk to somebody that knows how
yeah,
to handle debt. If you owe a bunch of money, talk to the person that can handle cleaning up your credit or does debt like consolidation or whatever. Like go talk to the person that handles that and figure out where you want to go. But I think that's the biggest thing is we're just like, ah, it's unattainable. And I will admit, my wife and I got very, very lucky. And when we bought our place in 2008 here, it was as the market was crashing and everything was being foreclosed on. We were both still employed with paychecks, W-2s, but had we waited 6 months, that would not have been the case. She eventually, she got, we were able to buy the house. And then the very next year, I was already freelancing in video production and we had our son like a year later. And so all of it kind of just fell into the right place. And at the time, yes, we were lucky. You didn't have to put a down payment. We were able to get a decent deal on the house. But I also watched it become worth 1/3 of what we took out a mortgage for. And now we've worked our way the opposite way, and it's worth 2.5 times what we paid for it. And I feel very fortunate for that. But it was like right place, right time. And sometimes you have to commit to something. I didn't know where I was going to come up. The mortgage was $550 too. And I know it's like, oh, but at the time in 2008, like we were living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't know where I was going to come up with $550 every month. That was a lot of money. And then it got to the point where it was like nothing and it was a joke to pay it. But at the time, like it was overwhelming. And but it had to start somewhere. Like I was willing to take the risk of losing everything and really, really screwing myself up financially in order to try and move myself ahead. And I don't know that everyone's always willing to do that. They always think like you have to have this thing in place or it's got to be this exact way and then you can do it. And sometimes if you wait too long, you've missed the opportunity and it's better to pull the trigger early and then figure out the rest later. You need to have like 70% of the information and then you can go. And that's where, again, once I was actually able to build a savings, it didn't happen until I got in the flooring industry. I didn't have savings until I got in the flooring industry, but it was slowly but surely just taking a little bit off the top of everything I was doing. And I should have been doing that the whole time, but young and stupid and drinking and smoking and just, money going everywhere but where it should instead of figuring out what a lifestyle should actually cost. And it sounds like that's what you did is you went and you were like, oh, I'm going to live in this boarding house and live for nothing. And like you looked at what the cost was and said, I can be happy with way, way less. I don't need it. And that's the beauty of it. If you got rid of all of your possessions, I know that Shane's going to end up happy. He's not identifying through his goods that are around him. And
mm-hmm.
I think that I would have problems giving up some of my stuff and I would be miserable, but that's something I got to work on. And I know other people that are in that situation. If you're listening and that's you, like we got to figure out a way to better ourselves so that we're happy with less. Waking up in the morning should be enough. There's plenty to be thankful for every day, and you just have to find it.
Mm-hmm.
You acquired you acquire a
Yeah, perfect.
house. You,
Yeah.
you held on to that for years. You made it through a financial downturn with it, and but that's actually when it was your brother that came to you asking for money for a paint store.
Yeah, it was. It was. I was actually ready to leave the union anyways, and not at all because I was unhappy. I actually liked the shop I worked for. I liked the work. I felt their pay structure was fair. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
it's odd for an employee to say all these things, right? But I thought it was a pretty all right. But I did want more. I did want more, and I saw opportunity. I was actually going down the path. I was dealing with. I'm sure lots of guys in the industry listening will identify with this, but I was running into so much shitty concrete issues, and as more and more products were becoming more uh, inflexible with the conditions that they got installed
Hmm.
under, and end users were getting more and more fussy. Jobs that would have been accepted 10 years ago wouldn't be accepted. Rolls in the floor and shit like that, and I was actually going down the path of wanting to start a concrete correction company. That's what I was going to do in Vancouver. And I know if I had done that, I would have made a shitload of money. So I ended up making a lot of money doing something else, but
Yeah.
that was the path I was on. I was investigating what equipment I needed, where to get the training. I was getting ready to pull the trigger on my union work. And, uh, and yeah, because of the way I lived, I would have had to borrow money to do all this, but I figured I was well positioned to do it, right? But then my brother came to me with an opportunity to open a Benjamin Moore paint store.
Hmm.
He was a manager of a store, and Benjamin Moore, a rep, approached him and saying, "Hey, are you ready to own your own store? There's this community out in the islands that has had one owner after another struggle with it, but we feel it's a good market. So we want an experienced manager owning it." And they went to him, but he had no money. So he came to me, and I didn't have loads of money, but I had a heck of a lot of equity. And so I did that. I dug into home equity. I took out a second mortgage, and I helped him finance that paint store. At first, I didn't intend to work in it or be part of it. I was just going to let it do its thing, and I was going to stay in the union and keep doing my thing a little longer. Doing that did stall my plans for doing the concrete correction company, because all of a sudden now that was my available capital. But I trusted my brother. We were very close. He's
Hmm.
8 years younger than me, but I knew he was good at what he did, and I trusted him. And I kind of viewed that as a possible exit strategy for me. I'm just like, hey, if my knees and back start to hurt so much, maybe I'll just work in my brother's paint store that I part own, right? So it started out that way. He started the business for and ran it for 2 years. He would occasionally sell flooring jobs. It was a
Okay.
paint store, but he's looking for an extra hustle in that. It's like, hey, I can provide flooring. I've got access to flooring, and if you need an installer, I've got an installer. So I'd go over there maybe once a month, maybe for a week. I was working for a great company that rolled with me on that. I would just tell them, hey, I'm going to my island for a week. I'm going to be gone, and they were cool with that.
Hmm.
And So I do jobs over there, and I started thinking, it's like, I bet you if I marketed myself over here, there's probably enough work over here. But the big change for me is when my wife was pregnant, because my apartment, even though it's beautiful and has a beautiful view, it's 550 square feet,
Hmm.
and we had a baby on the way. And in the city of Vancouver, anyone that knows its real estate, it's like the big cities in the America. It's like the cities in California. It's like trying to upgrade from a one-bedroom apartment to a bigger apartment, or God forbid, a detached house. It's like Vancouver was already out of my price range. A detached house that needed lots of work, that was a fixer upper, was looking at $1.3 million in the city.
Jeez.
Um, so I would have had to start looking into the outskirts of the city, which I didn't want to do.
Hmm.
And so then I started realizing, well, prices were already expensive in the Gulf/San Juan Islands. It was already getting expensive there, but I could buy a house over there. And so I'm like, so maybe I should go on that path of working my business on this island, and that, because I can actually afford a house with a couple of acres, a place I can let my kids
Hmm.
out the front door to run around, instead of being in an apartment having to, shuffle them around to organize activities. So it was really the onset of a family that encouraged me to go and do the small town, small island thing. And
Okay, but I mean that it was the island that brought it about, and your brother coming to you and asking for the paint store, and that's led to something that you probably never even expected, because now it's 9 stores, and it's not, you still install flooring full time. Don't think he's not an installer, folks. His brother manages most of
yeah,
all the paint stuff going on, but it's what is going on here with the internet. That's no bueno. We're good on the other side though. Sorry, folks. If we come back, we come back. Um, you, it's turned into so much more, but it was first there had to be a savings that existed, and then you were able to go and leverage that house and create the ability to buy the paint shop, and then that paint shop has now turned into 9 paint shops. But if you
Yeah.
would have been pulling every penny out and not watching it and building up retained capital earnings so that you could continue to grow the company, you wouldn't be where you're at today, which is much more financially stable than you would have been had you never decided to live in a boarding house with an $800 van.
Right, right. I still think there's always financial risk. If you're a working class person in our society, you can't never get arrogant because you're always vulnerable to downturns of the economy unless you actually have things outright paid off. And even then you've got expenses. So
Mm-hmm.
I never feel like I have it made, so to speak. It's um I think the attitude that gets you to where you are, you have to maintain.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense. Like the habits and practices that got you to a certain point, you can't lose those. You can start enjoy life more. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've had some wonderful vacations with my family. I've managed to knock off some bucket list stuff. Scuba diving in the Caribbean, traveling in Europe. I've as I stabilized myself and had more money, I started to do these things. So
Mm-hmm.
I started to enjoy life. But I think the fundamental principles and habits to the way of life of staying within your means, keeping your life um, um, not exceeding your expenses vastly is those principles have to remain to hold it.
I agree. I think
Um,
this hustle and grind culture that's promoted constantly is absolutely disgusting. And it's not that I don't think you need to be out there hustling and grinding, but it is to the point now where they just, you got to go, go, go. You got to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 360. You don't. There's time to relax. You can enjoy yourself, but you have to keep an attitude where you're not resting on your laurels. And to bring the
yes.
business perspective about, let's look at we can look at Sears and we can look at Blockbuster. Blockbuster laughed at Netflix when Netflix came and asked them to be bought twice, and
Mhm.
Blockbuster turned them down both times. So how's that working out for you? And Sears did not adapt quickly enough to the changing environment of, going from the biggest people in like the now I can't think of the word because we don't really have them anymore. Just um a something store. What
Department store.
a department store. There we go. Yeah. So right, like they were the biggest thing in department stores. I mean, freak. They used to sell you houses. They would just drop off a giant box, and you would pull all the stuff out and build yourself a house. And now there's none. They're all gone. And because they couldn't adapt to the way the economy was changing, and so they rested on what they thought had built them up and made them the greatest, and it didn't work out. And if that's what you're going to do, if you think that just because you have a little bit of success and you can stop there, it ain't going to work. It's all going to fall apart. So you got to keep going, but you don't have to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Maybe at first, maybe like the first year, but don't keep that up
Oh,
forever.
I go through my ups and downs. I get
There's that
busy.
too.
I start to grind. My family has to remind me they're still there. This happens.
Well,
It's
so let's talk about that, because that's actually what happened, right? You mentioned earlier that you bought a new house.
I
So
did.
the house that you originally had on the island, you now have as a rental, and you're trying to get that ready, but you got a new house.
Yeah.
It's made you broke, and I know
Yes,
from
it has. It has.
I,
It's like now part of that is it's a little bit self-inflicted because I've actually never sold a property. Every time I've moved, I've since I bought my first apartment
mhm.
in 2000, every time I've moved, I've bought the next place and I've kept the place I currently own. So that habit, if you want to call it that, means I'm not transferring equity into the new house. I'm building a new house with a down payment of savings and carrying on and trying to rent out the previous one. It's like I've been so busy with my work and my business, I haven't done the renos and work I need in my previous house to rent it out yet. So I actually have a house sitting empty right now, and that's very financially painful. I am not rich enough to have an empty house. Okay, it's not even close. So I need to really buckle down on that and get a renter in it. And
Well,
I
there's
move forward better. So yeah, so I've got new stress of, man, I got this big mortgage to pay and I got to come up with it and I got to hustle for it and that. And so I think this is your way of getting us back on topic of the FU account, right?
well, we've been there, right? So I mean, you'd stated that you kind of went through the savings and that
Yeah.
because you had to pay this person and that person, you got the new house and you paid for some repairs and whatnot. But in the mastermind group last night, you were talking about Shane's been bidding a bunch of commercial projects. And
Mhm.
it's not that he doesn't, it's not that he can't do commercial projects, but it's not something
That's
he usually does. But it's also taking him off the island and he's having to go back to Vancouver and do stuff. And he's away from his family. It's not that it's not profitable, but it's not as profitable as some residential remodel stuff.
yeah.
And so we were talking through why he did it. And the
Mhm.
conclusion we came to, Shane, why'd it happen? Why are you taking all these jobs that you don't
But
really want?
it's funny because I was asking myself, it's here's the funny thing about it. I've got lots of the good work that I like. I have lots of it. I didn't need to start bidding on commercial jobs, which was my background, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's they've always come my way. I've always had people, I guess I had enough of a reputation that I always get calls for work. And I say no most of the time. But I'm looking at my big looming mortgage and I'm looking at my bank account and I'm saying, I got to say yes to this. It's like, yes, I've got lots of work, but, or I've got enough of the good work that I like that I'm like, you know what? Maybe for security purposes, I should bid on a couple of these. Some of these commercial jobs are 3, 4 weeks long. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's guaranteed work that I make good money at. I make floor layer wages at. But, um, and, but yeah, maybe I should take those on. So I find myself in a position where, and it's not bad and I'm not unhappy, but is not my ideal or preferred position. And I'm asking myself, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I saying yes? Why am I chasing after this lower margin, high volume commercial work? And I won't say that there is money in that world too. There
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, but it's different. And to do your best in that work, you've got to have the steady crew. You have to be geared for it. And so I just do okay in that world. And it's like, well, the fundamental reasons is I feel I need to take measures to ensure I've got work not just this month and next month, but for the month following, and
Mm-hmm.
that cash flow is coming in. Meanwhile, I'm trying to delay some of my 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 on my island customers while like, hey, I'm away for 2 weeks. I'll come back and measure your job when I'm back, or
Mm-hmm.
on the weekend and stuff like that. So it's just like,
It's
why am I here? And it's like, yeah, I don't have that FU account anymore. that
there's
that
no
little stash
yeah.
of money where it's just big enough where I've got enough expenses going covered and going into the future that it's like, yeah, this is okay. This is okay. No, I'm not really interested in that. This is what I want to chase after. I'll spend my time marketing where I want to work
Mm-hmm.
versus taking the jobs I feel I need to do. And it's been many years since I've been in that position because I've had a long run of things going in the direction I want them to. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that's okay. So yeah,
Well,
so
it's
yeah,
it
I got to rebuild my FU account so I can I can start feeling that way
and
again.
and you're along the way. I know that we talked about it,
Yeah,
and there
yeah,
is
I
money
am.
going back into it, and it's growing. But it's interesting because we get so caught up because we get stressed out, and I get it. Look, we're basically saying to ourselves that we're going to guarantee our livelihood, and we don't know where the next paycheck's coming
No,
from. We don't.
no.
What am I going to get the project or not? I don't know. Mrs. Smith has to say yes, and so I understand you wanting to chase it, but then I don't think we always look and we count the entire cost because now you're renting a place. Oh, you're renting an Airbnb away
Yeah,
from your family. You
I'm
you
right
have
now
you have
in a place
young.
I rented for a month. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. A month. You're gone 4 weeks, and like, okay, great. You go back weekends, but I know
yeah,
your kids are young. They're just younger. Your older one's about the same age as my boy, and
yeah.
then your twins are a little bit younger, but they're young, man. There's a lot of influence that you have on them, and we only get that time so often. You're also gone from your wife for a month, and like that puts a stress on that relationship. And so, is it worth the income it's going to provide for the amount of other stress it puts in your life to be able to maintain those relationships in those situations? And in the moment, you're like, I need money, I need money, I need money. Folks, money isn't everything. a lot of us could easily scale back our lifestyle and live in a smaller house and have less stuff. But American consumerism is killing us. And so we get caught up in I need. You don't need it. You want it. And so the delay the gratification, keep the bank account. And it's not, look, Shane's a big boy. I'm not trying to insult him. And I'm not saying, look, I've done stupid decisions and I've blown through money and gotten rid of the bank account and had to build it back up and whatnot. I think we all go through it. But I think we really need to learn to step back and weigh all the costs instead of getting caught up in the moment. You didn't need to do the commercial work, but you chose to do it. Is it going to help you build that account up faster? Sure. Is that fine? Yeah, it seems that you and your wife can work through this and your kids are content and this isn't an all the time thing, right? It's not like Shane's gone 11 months out of the year. It's I'm going to be gone a month and then I'll be back and we'll move on to the next thing. And so it's okay. But
Yeah.
it's definitely something I think we all need to be aware of, and maintaining that account is probably the better idea. And it, again, I'm getting ready to have to do a bunch of stuff and I might end up having to drain accounts. And now I'm sitting here having this conversation with you and I'm like, no, I don't know that I want to put myself in that situation. And there's probably some of it where you started, I know you did some work on the new place you moved into.
Yeah.
And you probably could have waited. You didn't have to do it. It's obviously, I
No,
know. It's
I couldn't.
easier to do it
I
before
couldn't.
you move in. I know it. I know. You
I
didn't
can't
have
live in a
to.
house that needs work, number one. And number two, and guys that know me in the different flooring groups and that will get a kick out of this, it had an effing click floor in it. It was a click vinyl. F that. I cannot live on a click vinyl floor.
All right. All right.
I won't do it. I put my money where my mouth is. It's like and at first I'm like, this is move-in ready. I can move into this. Not entirely what I want, but I can move into this. Walking around on that click floor is just no, I can't do this. I
That's
can't do that.
funny.
Like clickety clackety stuff, stupid transitions. Like no, I flush finished in my walk-in shower. My stair nose is gonna be a turnover flush finish. That it's like no.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and I get it. We get into situations and we have to adapt and whatnot. And it's not, again, there's also retained earnings in the paint company that if you absolutely needed money, you could go to. And I know that. And you're very fortunate that you can do that. But we convince ourselves we're dire when we're not. I think we get so accustomed to a higher lifestyle that then you
for sure.
come down a notch or half a notch and you're like, oh my God, the sky's falling. Where's Chicken Little? And again, we participate in a very lucrative industry. We can all build ourselves up very well. I think getting a focus on, I tell a lot of people that are struggling, man, just get the first $1,000. 10%, right? If your paycheck is going to be $500, then take 50 a week and set it aside from that paycheck. And then that's $200 a month. And in 5 months, you've got $1,000 and you're going to feel a lot better having the $1,000. And from there, if you can get it to 5 and then you get it to 10 and then you get it to 20 and you just chip away at it, but you can't touch it. The minute something comes along, you can't touch it. And I think you would agree that there was probably plenty of things along the way you wanted and you were just like, nope, gotta wait. That's not what that money's for.
Yeah. That is right. I think one of the big mistakes people make when they are a little closer to being hand to mouth, like poor to say, like we're like working hard and not quite meeting expenses, is that small amounts don't matter. I think that's the biggest mistake. Oh, I can only afford $10. It's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think you have to get yourself in the mindset of saving, of paying yourself first, so to speak, putting that money where you can't easily get it. You get your paycheck, you barely have anything left, but if it's $15, you throw it in that bank account that doesn't show up on your computer screen or your debit card doesn't access. Because I believe the habit is more important than the amount. I really believe that because
1,000%.
I did start from saving $50 at a time. I really, truly did. And then it came to a point where I'm saving $5,000 at a time as a chunk. Oh, I've got an extra $5,000 I can shove over in this account and forget about. But that I would never have gotten to the point of being able to say, oh, there's 5,000 I don't immediately need, so it can go into that bank account. I would never would have gotten there if I wasn't doing that with 50 bucks or
Hmm.
$5. I really think it's important. Um, something that might be a little controversial as advice goes is almost every financial advisor says pay down your debt first. And
Hmm.
paying down debt is certainly important, and it should definitely be a priority. If you're paying high interest rates, absolutely should lower that. If you owe money to a supplier, yes, you got to get that money down,
Hmm.
but you shouldn't forego savings. You should still be taking a little bit for two purposes. One, for developing that habit of actually taking money and saving it, and and secondly, so it will build up. So you're doing the right thing. You're putting that little bit of money aside. You are still focusing on paying down debt. But then you look back on it, when that debt's finally paid, it's like, oh, wow, I finally paid that debt. That credit card is done. I can put it aside and work on the next debt. Oh, look at this. I got $5,000 over there,
Yeah.
and you can start getting that mindset that you aren't desperate, that you can ask for higher standards, that you can push your position more. You're not going into a job trying to say just anything to get the sale. You're going into a job trying to make the right sale at the right price.
Yes.
So yeah.
I love it. Great advice. Is there
Yeah.
is there anything we really didn't hit on in this conversation that you think we need to?
One other, and this
Okay.
is for guys that are going out on their own, starting their own business, or setting themselves up as a corporation, getting incorporated, is I also believe, and I've got no financial expert backing me up on this, it is an opinion of mine. I believe that you should have an FU account, if you want, a backup account personally and business wise.
Yes.
And I believe
Yes.
they should be separate. I
Hmm.
think you should have the cash reserve personally. So you can go into any grocery store and buy groceries if you really had to, if you really got pushed, but you don't do that until you get that push point. And I believe your business should also have a cash reserve. Like so far, we've been talking about my personal situation where I am
Hmm.
now. Through all this, I haven't touched my business cash reserves. They're still there. So I still have that to fall back on. That may change. Who knows what the economy is going to do? It's like
Hmm.
I don't have a crystal ball, and I haven't got it all figured out, and I'm still a working cog in the system. I'm a working class guy with tools in my hands, right? But I do maintain that business savings, and I do maintain the personal savings
Hmm.
separate. So
For
yeah.
sure. Great advice. I can't agree more. And the goal is to get to 6 months, folks. But if you can even hit three, you are doing way, way better than probably 70% of Americans, I bet, if not more than that. Um, and it starts with little bits. It's again, it's if you can start with $10, if that's all you got, start with $10. If you can do 50, do 50. If you can do 100, do 100. If you can do 10%, do 10%. If you can do 20%, do 20%. But start with something. I mean, if it's a quarter, start with the quarter. I think one of the
Uh,
easiest ways, if for some reason you are an hourly installer somewhere and you get a paycheck, go to your bank, set up a separate bank account, and get the direct deposit form for it, and then go fill it out and turn it into HR, and just have $25 come out of your check. Trust me, in the grand scheme of things, you're probably not going to miss $25, and you're going to figure out how to live without it because now you just don't have it. But if you don't see the bank account grow, you're going to be able to do it much more easily. And that was really one of the things that helped me was with the business account. There was a savings account and I could just funnel money into it and I wasn't paying attention. It was I would go into the branch to deposit checks or whatever, and then I would be like, "Hey, I need this much moved over to that account." And they'd be like, "Do you want to see the balance?" I was like, "Nope. Just move the money over there. I don't
yeah.
I don't want to know anything about it. It's put it all over there." And what I was really doing was I would look at how much I had, and I would figure out my expenses right away so that when the check cleared, I knew how much I had to move, and I moved 40% of everything into savings so that that's covering taxes, but that's also like my retained earnings all in one. So if I can run the company, and I was able to do it off of the 60%, well, still paying myself plus being able to buy the tools, all that stuff. But when I needed a truck, there was a lot of money in that savings account that I didn't know was there. And I was like, oh my God, I can just go buy a truck. Like no questions asked, 20K on a truck, cash, done, perfect. And there was still money left over. Like I didn't blow my wad on that one transaction. There was still money left to be like, cool. I don't, if I don't land the next 3 projects, I can still survive for a couple of months and I'm okay. And I can go bid some more and I'm going to get the next one. And I think that's what matters is find a system that works for you so you can start building a cushion. Because at some point we're all going to fall. The economy is going to do something again. It's super wonky. We don't know. I don't know if it's going to be 2008 again. I don't know if it's going to be COVID again. I'm not that
Something.
worried. I have time to figure something out and pivot because I've built myself that cushion. And I want you to have that cushion because there's no reason that we should have to go from such a lucrative time in our trade where everybody was just throwing money at us to like, oh my God, I'm dying. I can't find work. I don't know what to do. What were you doing for the past 3 years? People were throwing money at us. It was a freaking printing press. And now you're begging for work. You don't have any. What did you do? I don't get it. I don't, because the whole time we were over here talking about how to save money and make more money and be more profitable. So let me know. I would love to see it. Like, let's get a chat started in Floor Academy. And if you're struggling, like, I want to know why. Like, did we not take the right steps during, or is it that we need to look at how we're saving? I got plenty of stuff I need to. I'm not perfect, folks. I got plenty of bad decisions I make all the time, and I am happy to discuss them and throw them out there and get called out on them and be told that I'm a hypocrite or whatever needs to happen. Like this is real, but let's have an open, honest conversation because I think that's how we're going to change. We have to get uncomfortable to be able to grow. So, go ahead.
Something to add to that just briefly. It's like, I think part of the problem is people are often ashamed to talk about that. And it's funny, this is just my observation and talking to guys, talking to fellow
Mm-hmm.
tradespeople. It's like guys are quite comfortable saying, "Oh, I'm broke. Oh, I blew all my money. I have no money." They're very comfortable say that, but they're very uncomfortable with the conversation of the details of why. It's like, "Oh, I'm broke this week. Oh, I'm broke this month. Oh, I never have any money. Whatever." It's like, so why? Yeah, is this something you actually want to talk about? Like, let's find out why. It seems that
Mm-hmm.
the details of that discussion are what no one wants to talk about, and I think we need to lower the shame of of the issues people get themselves into financially, and so we can talk about the details. I
Mm-hmm.
love talking about the details. It's and
Yeah.
and yeah, really get into the root, like you did with me, on why are you taking why are you going after this work that you
Correct.
usually don't like to go after? And it's like, why am I here? Yes, I have to really look at that. There's an uncomfortable truth behind it, right?
That was
Like
it.
I think people need to dig for the uncomfortable truths.
Yes, we have to get uncomfortable, and it's not going to be fun, and it's not going to be pretty. But you know what? You surround yourself with the right people, and it's going to be okay. And
Mhm.
so that's what's going to matter is you got to find a place where there's people you can trust and really lay it all out there because we have to work on ourselves. As much as I want to say that everything we talk about on this show is for the back end, a lot of it is for our personal development. And because if you're not right mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever we need, your business is going to be a reflection of you. And so if you're a hot mess somehow, your business is going to be a hot mess too. And so digging down and digging deep and really figuring this stuff out, it's cool. Look, I'm an alcoholic. I'll admit it. I've admitted it on the show before. It's part of who I am. I make really poor choices. I can get really belligerent and angry when I drink, and it's not something that I'm especially proud of. I don't regret it. I've made bad choices, and I have to live with those consequences, and hopefully I've learned from them. But there's also been times where like buying the 30 pack of Budweiser was more important to me than being able to save $10. And that made some really difficult times. Or I remember scrounging up change, my wife and I, and can we get that next pack of cigarettes when we were smokers? Like just stupid stuff. And like you can't. You're just in a place where you can't if you don't want to deal with it, you're not going to. I know that. It's the same thing, right? Like you're not going to convince an addict to go check into rehab and be successful with it if they don't actually want to change. And I didn't want to change at that time. And so if you don't want to change, that's cool. If you want to change, I am happy to have the conversation. Shane would be happy to have the conversation. Plenty of people in Floor Academy would be happy to have the conversation. Throw it out there. There is no shame in admitting it and being vulnerable in front of people. And that's one of the beauties. We'll pitch the mastermind groups here. That's the beauty of them. Is there's 5 people, there's 6 people with me facilitating that are just getting really, really vulnerable, laying it all out there and saying, you know what? I don't have it all right and I need help and I would love your opinion, but everybody else is saying the same thing. And then the trust level is really through the roof. And everybody that's in there, you don't have to worry about it because everyone's being vetted before they show up. And so the trust is developed fairly quickly amongst everybody. And it makes a huge difference when everyone's willing to come in and not bullshit each other and be like, there's no dick measuring contest. Absolutely none. Everyone is on an equal playing field and everyone's saying, you know what? Nope, I'm screwed up and I'm not doing it right. And I need some help. And it's really cool. And so I would love to see that in other places. I won't lie, having the cost behind it is one of the things that makes it effective because you feel really silly when you're paying and then you're not actually doing the work. And so look, I if you want to start one for free and you can find 5 people to do it, go do it. The commitment level probably isn't going to be the same and people probably won't treat it the same. And that's the magic of what's happening in there is that there is a cost and you, when you're not doing the work, you understand that you're throwing money away, but there is huge value in it. And you're going to, if you're not finding a way to get your money back, then something is absolutely wrong. So you can learn more at Floor Academy /mastermind. Again, check out the website. We got all kinds of fun tools on it. If you want to help support the show, we've got patreon.com/Floor Academy. $5 a month. Even more, again, if you can't find $60 of value through this show between all the episodes over 4 years, I ask me. I'll give you $60 worth of value. We'll look at your business and we'll figure something out. Appreciate the support. It goes a long way in helping me to continue to do all the stuff. And what do we got? It is early January, according to when this show comes out live. So we've got Tice in like 3 weeks. And if you're not registered, you need to get registered. And you can get a free exhibition pass by using the code Kyle. Tice is going to be January 24th through the 26th in Las Vegas. And while that may not be super appealing to other people, I'll tell you what, it's an absolute wash when you get to get together with everybody that's there. The people in this flooring industry are absolutely amazing. The people make it worthwhile. And if you're into gambling, then hey, I guess that's a plus for you as well. So whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or serve in another capacity within our industry, attending Tice is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. You can also learn about the newest and industry-leading products coming to market. Stay up to date with the International Surfaces event page on Facebook or online at intlsurfaceevent.com. Don't forget about my Pulse seminar Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. on the 24th. I'm going to be talking about how flipping your org chart upside down and taking a look at it from that perspective is going to give you more effective communication in your business and make you run more efficiently. I look forward to seeing you all in Vegas. Shane, thank you so much for joining me, sharing part of your story and going over why, just taking the time to save some money and give yourself a cushion is so important to not only your personal life, but your business as well.
Okay.
That'll do it for us this week, folks. We'll catch you on the next one.